Okay, we've messed around with putting transitions in. We have kind of talked about the effects control panel, what that does for each transition. There's a piece of the effects control panel which allows you to either further refine, to continue to refine the transitions that you can work with. Let's go ahead and open project, and we're going to work with the A/B editing piece, and that's in 6.3. So I'm going to double click 6.3. Wait for that to open. And you'll see a video clip. We already have transitions. We got a cross dissolve at the beginning. We got a push in there. And I think this is just an extension. Yep, there's the iris. It's an extension of our previous lesson before. I am going to kind of squash the program window. And I'm going to pull down the timeline just a little bit. I want to get just to the, make it a little bit smaller so I can maximize the effects controls window. And I'm going to basically show you what A/B editing is. We're not going to get too much in depth here. You can get into trouble with A/B editing in terms of working with transitions. So in any case, I've got the cross dissolve up. Let's see. We're going to go over, we're going to head on over to the push. So I'm going to slide over. It's in between the first and the second. And the push transition in between the first and the second clips gives you a great idea of what the A/B editor looks like. Again, last section, I actually shrunk it so you can't see it. There's your show, hide, or visible button for your A/B editor right there in the top right corner. Let's make sure it's up. And we're going to kind of mess around with this piece. Why this is called an A/B editor is you've got A roll video on the top and B roll at the bottom, which if I look down at my timeline, A roll would be the first video clip, B roll would be the second video clip. And the reason this helps is because your transition is shown as a piece in between these two rolls. So as I go through, you'll see, as I start changing some things about this transition, you'll see the in and out points of the A and B rolls will change. You can change duration if you want a different way. So let's kind of kick into this. If you notice, my mouse, my cursor, when I put it over the purple indicates a transition, and when I move the cursor over the transition, you'll see there's two different tools that show up. If I'm right in the middle, you're going to see a tool that may or may not look familiar to you. This is called the rolling edit tool. And if you remember back from chapter 5 when we did some cuts, I started talking about the rolling edit tool. Understand the rolling edit tool changes in and out points of your two video clips. It does not change the duration of the clip. So you can mess around with this. If I slide on that on the rolling edit tool, you'll notice in the program window to the right over here, let me kind of make that even bigger. You'll notice that it changes the in and out points of your A roll and your B roll. Does not change the duration of the transition. It just allows the transition to happen at different points of that video. That's what the rolling edit tool. Slide the mouse over just to the right or to the left a little bit, and you have what's called the shift tool. And basically what that allows you to do is to shift the actual transition where it starts and stops in comparison to the two video clips in conjunction. So although this is the middle of the clip where the clips meet, I can actually change the in and out points of the transition at that point using the shift tool. The other thing you can do, I'll try to put this right back in the middle. The other thing you can do right from here is you can change the length of the duration of the transition. If I click on the right side of it, you'll notice I can extend the duration. The duration number will change. Okay, so I could actually extend this duration of the transition just by doing something like that. Go down here, we can actually preview it in the timeline.
Stops tonight!
Still a rough transition with the way his audio comes in after that. That's a slow transition. I can change that over. Let me change the rolling a little bit and see what that does into the... So I'll just change the rolling edit and see what this looks like.
Here! Stops tonight!
So it started, the transition started on this clip a whole lot earlier in the clip than it was before. So you can see what A/B editing will allow you to do. There's also some other pieces too. There's an alignment piece. Let me pull this back. We shifted that over with the rolling edit. I'll pull it back in the middle. There's this alignment piece. You can center cut. You can start at the cut or end of the cut. And if I change this, you'll see the transition move on either side of the cut or right at the center cut, which is the same as what we did when we lay out transitions down here below. And you get the three actual shades there that happen. So that's kind of A/B editing. Give you a brief synopsis on that between the slide, the alignments. You can, obviously change the duration of the transition. Again, this is kind of complex stuff. You probably want to be careful about getting heavily involved in A/B editing because it could mess up most of your transitions at that point. All right, real quickly, I wanted to touch upon this. I talked about the handles when you pull a video clip in from the handles. I'm going to close this project. Don't want to save it, and I am going to open up 6.4. So let's open up 6.4. And what 6.4 is going to give me is video clips in the timeline that have not been edited to create handles. Remember back from lesson 2 on this chapter that in order for me to put transitions in, I had to do some edits on each of the video clips. So that will give me what are called head and tail handles. What we have here is a video clip that has, or is a sequence that has 2 video clips in their entirety. And this is the same video clips we've used all along. There's been no edits made to these, so these are full-fledged, full video clips. You see the director's cut right here. So we edited those. Okay. You'll notice the handles. If I zoom in really, really tight, you'll notice the handles right there. Okay. So you might say to yourself, well, what happens if you put a transition on something that doesn't have any head or tail handles? Let's try to put a cross dissolve in right here. So let's go into dissolve. We put cross dissolve, and I'm going to slide it right up on top. Don't worry, this was intended. I meant for this to happen. You're going to get an error. And the error says this: insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. Not a big deal. You say okay. And let's see what this looks like. You'll notice, let me zoom in even more, you'll even see it even better. Notice what happened over the transition. You get this dashed gray line that appears over the transition. Let me bang that out even more. You'll be able to see it a little more detailed. And let's see what happens here if I just play through this transition. So in essence, what happens, if you notice, let me kind of scrub through it. You start to see the picture of the first one come in, and it actually isn't bad, but you're going to get some freeze frames here in a minute. Let me show you how to do that. Let's go back to A/B editing. So I'm going to click on the cross dissolve, and there's your straight lines that are going forward. Let's make the transition 3 seconds. Let's really expand that transition out. Let's see what happens to this thing. And you notice the go screen as it sits right about there. You'll notice when it starts to transition, this other video just stands still before the actual video starts playing. So we want to watch how that goes. That's basically how transitions happen when you don't have any head or tail ends. And again, the idea here, how do we fix this? Well, the idea would be to let's get rid of that transition, and the idea would be to edit the beginning. So I'm going to roll this out until, let's say there. Let's clear, ripple, delete. And then once you throw that in now you can throw a cross dissolve in. And you could, well, actually I didn't edit. Let me edit the first one too. Let's get rid of that one. Ripple, delete. And then now you can put your dissolve over both, and it dissolves nicely. Here we go. Just had to work for a second. It dissolves nicely from one to the other. So very important you have both head and tail ends handles on those video clips.